Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Brian.
I'm Lindsey.
I'm Jay.
And we're here to talk about Dirty Dancing, starring Jennifer Grey, Patrick Swayze, Cynthia Rhodes, Jane Bruckner, Lonnie Price, Max Cantor, Jack Weston, and Jerry Orbach. Directed by Emile Ardolino. Released in 1987 on a budget of $6 million, it grossed $214.6 million at the box office. It won Best Original Song at the Oscars for I've Had the Time of My Life by Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes. All right, so here we are talking Dirty Dancing. And, gosh, my earliest memory, I go back to probably right when it came out. I just remember all of the hoopla about the dances that were in this movie and all of the backlash from different conservative groups and things like that really didn't like the fact that they were kind of humping each other on TV. There was a big hoopla about that. It was on the news. I think 60 Minutes did a thing on it. And I don't think I was able to watch it, of course, because I was 9 years old when this came out. So there was no chance I was watching it then. I do remember the hype about it. And I think I probably watched it when I was 12, finally. So that's my background. What's your background, Jay?
I can only tell you this mind-blowing story in as serious a tone as I can muster, because my super conservative Christian household that we grew up in, my mother and her girlfriends went and saw this at the theaters. All right. And just raved about it. And didn't get, like, she said, I understand why everybody's so upset about it or whatever, because they are kind of humping on stage, but it's a really sweet story and yada yada. And I'm sitting there going, like, really? Because I was like 11 and the playground talk had been what it was really about and what the underlying story was and all this stuff. And it was, scandal. And I just remember thinking, like, that's okay. Okay, really? So we had it on VHS, like, when it came out, and they rented it and we watched it. And I don't know a part of my life where I haven't known this movie since it came out. Like, I just think I've seen it through the years, and then, I don't know, it was on television a few times and I would catch it here and there, and then I just kind of forgot about it. I think the thing I remembered most about it was the soundtrack. Yeah. And I think I owned the tape of it or something like that. And, everybody knew the songs. And I think I was always amazed by this movie that was set in the 60s that had all this freaking 80s music in it and just passed it off like that was okay, but whatever. But I remember that. And then when I met my wife many years later, she didn't have very many movies in her collection because that's not really her thing, but she had this one. And I was like, really, this one? And she was like, oh yeah, I just think it's cute. And I was like, well, okay, indeed. And so, yeah, that's my background with Dirty Dancing. I've always known this movie.
All right. How about you, Lindsey?
Oh, man. So I actually grew up not terribly far from Mountain Lake, where this movie is filmed. And when my aunts came to visit, most of them lived in New England. One of the big things that my mom always did was take them to Mountain Lake. And I never went because the drive was still probably an hour and a half, 2 hours to get there. And I was a kid and didn't want to sit in the car for 2 hours. But I could never figure out. I was just like, what is so special about this stupid lake? I don't understand, because I'd never seen the movie. And then when I got a little older, I saw it and I was like, this is great. And in college, I actually stayed at Mountain Lake for like a weekend training retreat thing or something. And it's still really nice and it still looks very much the same. But the cabins are a little more updated. And I liked the movie so much and I got really into dancing, like swing dancing mostly and stuff like that, and went into Dirty Dancing Havana Nights, which also is good and not the movie we're talking about today, but that movie propelled me into learning how to salsa dance, which was a lot of fun too. But that movie itself was what like got me into like, oh, well, dancing seems kind of cool. Maybe I'll try that. And I am not a dancer or professional dancer or anything like that on any level, for the record. I just really like to do it. But it all started when I was a little kid, and my parents were obsessed with going to Mountain Lake.
I think that's
for the
awesome.
record, I can't dance at all.
Me neither.
Put that out there. I was in the band on the stage. Like, that was my thing. I could not do any of that. We talked about that on the November session show, that like I was obsessed with Grease, but probably because I could never do any of that.
Yeah, I can dance as far as like kids who do musicals can fake dancing. Like, that's about as good as I can dance. I'm really good at faking knowing how to dance, but I don't actually know how to do it.
Well, I don't dance, so all good. But I think that's kind of cool that you have kind of that relationship to it where you know the place and you've been to the place and all that stuff. I think that's kind of a neat add in here. But anyway, before we get into things, Jay, can you give us a plot summary for Dirty Dancing?
Certainly, for the uninitiated. It's the summer of 1963, and Frances Baby Houseman is vacationing with her parents, Jake and Marge, and her sister, Lisa, at Kellerman's, an exclusive resort in the Catskills, though we do know it's in North Carolina and Virginia, actually. So Baby, whose plans for life don't exactly align with what her parents want her to do, gets bored one night and in exploring comes across a dance party with the hotel's entertainment staff. There she meets Johnny, the lead dance instructor, and she's instantly attracted to him, though he doesn't really pay her the time of day. And when Baby learns that Johnny's dance partner, Penny, is pregnant by Robbie, a waiter who's an all-around jerk and also hitting on her sister, Baby borrows money from her father, who is a doctor, for an abortion for Penny, though her father doesn't know why she wants the money. As Penny is set to undergo the procedure, Baby works with Johnny to fill in for Penny at another performance so that they can keep up their gig. During those rehearsals, she and Johnny grow closer and closer, and if Penny's procedure goes horribly awry and the results and complications, Baby enlists her father to help. While he provides medical assistance, he forbids Baby to have any association with her newfound friends again. Of course, she immediately disobeys this and launches into a passionate affair with Johnny, and her secret romance finally comes to light when Johnny's accused of theft, but she covers for him, confirming that she was with him all night and giving him a solid alibi. Reeling with shock and disappointment, Baby and her father finally confront each other, and while he doesn't really have much to say, she tells him while she's not proud of what she did, she isn't sorry for it either, and they part tearfully. Johnny's cleared of his theft investigation, but fired anyway, and Baby and Johnny say goodbye, saying they were happy to have known each other no matter how it had to end. And so finally the season talent show ends, and Baby sits quietly in the corner, and her father goes up to congratulate Robbie, who's getting ready to go to medical school, and wish him well, only to find out that he actually was responsible for Penny and is an all-around sleaze, something we've known the entire movie. And as the final number plays, Johnny returns, walks over to the Housemans, and pronounces, "Nobody puts Baby in a corner." And Baby and Johnny lead a massive dance around the ballroom to the tune of "I've Had the Time of My Life." And seeing how happy his daughter is, Jake Houseman admits to Johnny that he was wrong about him, shakes his hand, and our two star-crossed lovers dance the night away as credits roll.
All right, so there we go. That's a pretty good, I'd say, summary of Dirty Dancing. The movie itself, Patrick Swayze, I think, had he done Roadhouse before this or no?
No, that was after.
Okay, so this is the movie that really put him on the map, is it not?
Yeah, he had done like The Outsiders and Red Dawn, and that's what I knew him from, but this is the thing that made him like a
superstar
and a sex symbol and all that
and
stuff.
a heartthrob. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it was on like People Magazine and all that stuff after this, yeah. And Jennifer Grey, I knew from like Ferris Bueller and stuff,
Yeah, but this was really her only big thing that she ever did. Can you think of anything else that she was big in?
She's done a lot of stuff, actually, but it's just not
never,
that you remember.
Never like this. Never as big.
Never anything this massive again. I mean, if you go back in the archives, you can listen to Ron and I talk about her and her post-plastic surgery face and one of those Tales from the Crypt movies we did. I think it's called Ritual or something like that. You can go back and look at that one. And that's the kind of work she got for years. I know her more recently from like having done Dancing with the Stars, which I don't watch, but I know she was on because it was just everywhere.
Yeah, well, this was her big thing, and I think the sad news is that she kind of went the route of Tales from the Crypt, and he went the route of superstar all the way up until his unfortunate passing. But this was really propelled Patrick Swayze into everyone's home, and everyone knew who Patrick Swayze was after this, and you get all those movies after this, Ghost and everything else that he just is really known for, but this is the one. And it's an interesting movie, and I haven't watched it probably in, gosh, I would say 15 years at least. So it was real interesting watching it again and kind of looking at the time frames and all the stuff going on in the background and how it kind of worked, and just kind of shaking my head at certain things. It was real interesting, especially the owner of the resort. Gosh, what a character that guy is. Just hilarious, and just your typical, like, you almost think he's part of the mafia, the way he treats people and acts at that place. Like he's king shit, and nothing goes past him. Just hilarious. And then, of course, his son thinks he's above everyone else because of that fact. Just interesting play on this with the different characters. I thought they did a real good job having all sorts of different characters in this movie.
I thought casting wise, like, it's really well balanced, even for knowing what these people were in before and after and all that kind of stuff. You can kind of chart them. They did a pretty good job of just laying out a decent cast. And I mean, we didn't talk about her here, but I'll mention her now. I've been obsessed with Cynthia Rhodes for years because, again, I watched a lot of John Travolta movies, and Staying Alive was something I had seen and didn't burn my eyes out. And she's the lead dance in that. And I mean, and you know, you would know her probably, right? She was Richard Marx's wife for 25 years and stuff like that. But she's a really well accomplished dancer and singer and things like that. I just knew who she was at the time. And I always thought she had such an interesting character in this, because it's really a thankless role. Like, at this point in her career, she talks about how she really didn't want to do dance movies anymore. She had done Flashdance, and she had done Staying Alive, and she had done this and that and the other, and she was kind of done with that. And this was kind of the last thing she did dance wise. And it's a kind of a neat role too. So I always remembered her from it, though I'm like you, it had been at least 10 years since I had seen it, since you two brought it up on a Sessions, and that's what kind of got the ball rolling for us to throw it into our February schedule.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't recognize a whole lot of these people per se. I'm not as versed, obviously, in movies as you are, but the people that I did recognize, obviously the two main characters, I recognized the father. I think I've seen him in several things other than this, but beyond that, most of these people I don't recognize from other movies that I've watched, so I can't.
I think people would know Jerry Orbach mostly from Law and Order, probably modern audiences.
For sure.
I mean, he had a whole Broadway career ahead of this. Irina and I talked about it on the Chicago show, because he was in the original broadcast or Broadway production of that. So that would be somebody like they would know. The funny thing for me is, like, Jerry Orbach is this Broadway musical theater actor or whatever, but in the 80s and 90s, like, he either played cops or hitmen. Like, it was so weird. Lindsay, I don't know if you shed any light on that, but it seemed to get typecast into that.
Well, actually, that's so interesting. Perfect segue for what I was about to mention. Not specifically on him, but just the casting in general is how, like, I also didn't recognize everyone in it. I mean, obviously the big names, yes, but every character in it was just slightly recognizable, to the point where it's like, I've seen them in something else before. And I don't know if that's true. I think it's mostly just the casting director cast just perfectly for the typecasting. Like, everyone fit that exact caricature of the person they were playing. And we've seen these different characters in a number of different movies, and they fit a certain mold. And I think that they just did a great job casting for the look and the voice and how they interact with each other. And so for me, that led to, have I seen them in something before? Oh no, it was this other guy. They just look exactly the same and sound exactly the same.
I think that's what happens on films that don't have a big budget. I mean, this thing got greenlit, got put in turnaround, and messed around with studios before they finally got it together to put it together on that $6 million budget. And I mean, even in 1987, that's not a lot of money. No. I mean, that's about what you make like Halloween 4 for, or something like that. Like it's so nobody
Sharknado
gets paid.
3.
Yeah, well, they probably spent less on Sharknado 3, but even in adjusted dollars. But I mean, Patrick Swayze famously talks about, like, he got paid $5 million to do a cameo in Havana Nights, which he made $200,000 for this. So that tells you, like, how things had changed at that time. But everybody they got was a recognizable face or a recognizable type. I think that's what you hit on, Lindsay. So people would be like, oh yeah, and then they're all character actors, like Jack Weston and Jerry Orbach, and all these people are are people that just sort of disappear in the roles that they play. And then you've got Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze as your, gorgeous leads, and you kind of stick them out in front of everybody, and you let them do what they do. And I mean, they hit lightning in a bottle with the fact that they got Jennifer Grey, who is this really talented person, but incredibly insecure about her own talent, and would tell you this. This is not, I'm not jogging on her. She'd tell you she didn't know how to dance. She didn't know how to do any of this stuff. And Patrick Swayze, who was this Juilliard dancer and, had been working for years in Hollywood trying to get a break. And now he's got to teach this, his character has to teach this person how to dance. And then even he, as the actor, had to teach the other actor how to pull it off enough where they could fake it together, which I don't know. I've always thought that was kind of neat. And I mean, the stories are famous in Hollywood about, couples on screen that have such great chemistry. And then you hear all these stories about how they didn't really like each other. And I don't know that it was they didn't like each other. She frustrated him because she would just start laughing all the time. And I think some of the cuts are even in the movie where she starts giggling while they're trying to dance. And he would just, the look on his face is like, can we please concentrate?
Yeah, that's real. That is real frustration.
Yeah. But I always thought that was fun, though, that they left that in the movie because it's a good character thing, but it's also like you're watching the behind the scenes unfold in the film, which is, it's neat. It's rare when you get a production that comes together like that, but you hear the story over and over. So it's not the first or the last time you'll hear about something like that, but I've always thought that was neat because that story had been out there even when the movie came out. Like they both would cop to yeah, we weren't really, whatever, but sometimes, contention builds good chemistry on screen.
Oh, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about some of these characters because I think that they play a crucial part in telling this story. Let's start with obviously the Housemans. You got Baby, and then you got the mother and father and the sister. Now, the sister older or younger? I don't know if that was established. Do we know?
I think she's younger.
Younger? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, see, I thought it was older. That as older. Mm-hmm. I've always read that as older, but watching it this time, honestly, I was like, no, she's probably a year or so younger just because the way she acts. But she looks so much older than Jennifer Grey. I think that's why I got stumbled on it because she just looks like she's 3 years older than her.
Yeah, I always thought she was older too, and that Baby kind of took all the glory from her, and that's why she was always trying so hard and desperately to get Daddy's attention with the singing and everything else that she does. But I couldn't figure that out either. I would have said she was older, and then Baby obviously is the darling of the family.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and Baby is younger than her sister.
Okay, so that makes sense. And then, so basically, she's used to being the only child, and then Baby comes along and takes all the glory, and so she's got that tinge of jealousy in her where she's trying to get Daddy's affection, but Daddy, for some reason, shows it all to Baby, right? That's the dynamic, I think, of this family. And then the mom, who kind of just sits back and doesn't really do much. I mean, she's
until the very end.
Well, exactly.
The very end, when she tells him to sit down.
Exactly. She's the quiet person who is the obedient wife, right? And this is 1963, so and she's playing her role as the mom who lets Daddy take care of everything because Daddy's the breadwinner. He's the doctor. He's all this other stuff, and so yeah, it's a real interesting family dynamic, I think. And I can't help but chuckle with is Marge is the daughter, right? Marge?
No,
Marge is the mom. Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah,
okay.
Marge is the mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Names never work with me. But I think it's funny that Lisa's character in this movie is always trying to do something that Baby hasn't done, right? So she's dating Robbie the waiter, or I don't know if you can call it dating, but fooling around with Robbie the waiter. And,
they're hanging out.
Yeah. And then she's going up to her like, I think I'm going to, have sex with Robbie tonight, and trying to get Baby to be jealous, right? She's going to go all the way. And to me, Baby's just weird. Like, she knows Robbie's a sleaze, right? And she kind of goes to tell her, but then holds back every time.
Well, she does it because she knows it'll out her. Because how would she know that, right? Because at that point in the movie, when they have that conversation,
she's got a good excuse. Because didn't she see Robbie upset Lisa at one point, and then Neil says, "Sometimes we see things we don't like."
I know, what a condescending jerk, by the way. Even in 19.
So she's got an excuse, right?
I mean, Neil is so funny to me, dude. You're talking about Neil Kellerman. I think he's like the grandson of Max, and he's like, he talks to everybody like he's a second grade teacher.
Yes.
You know, like he needs to explain everything very carefully to you in this little droll tone. It's a neat little character thing, but he's not a bad person. Like if you met him, you'd be like, that's probably Neil's a nice guy. He's kind of a nerd, you know, or kind of a worm. I don't know, but he's not a bad dude. But the way he talks to everyone he is definitely, you know, got a pinky out with a tea glass and he's above them and that kind of stuff.
Definitely. I think that his character is completely, like you said, he's the nerdy kid, but he knows that he has leverage because of who is it his grandfather? Yeah, who his grandfather is. And he totally flaunts that because otherwise he knows he'd get his ass kicked, right?
What was that whole line he has about where he says, like, I'm the catch of the county, and I took this girl from this other guy, and he was like, what does he have that I don't have? And she was like, 2 hotels.
Yes.
And the best part is that he's not an attractive person. I mean, I'm sure there's a subset of women who do find Neil attractive, but like classically, I'm sure that the guy that he took this girl from by telling her he had 2 hotels was easily a foot taller than he was. So,
more muscle bound.
Right. So, you know, he's definitely using it. I just love the way he brags about having the amount of money that he has. Cracked me up the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but you see where he gets it from, too, because Jack Weston is this performer that I've just seen in a dozen other things. He's always giving these really broad comedic performances. And I mean, when he introduces himself, he has the best line because he like snaps his fingers and tells somebody to go do something. And he's like, girls, if your father wasn't for your father, I would be dead standing here today. I mean, you just kind of get the sense of what that kind of person is. But having worked at a university for a number of years that had a hotel and restaurant management degree, that's how those people are. I mean, no offense, but you have to have a certain kind of personality.
There's a certain
be able to constantly, you constantly sell. Like that's, and I just kind of got the sense that Max and Neil was just a chip off the block from that as well. And that's what's so funny contrasted to the Housemans, because when we meet them, you've got Jerry Orbach, who is, I mean, just always kind of is Jerry Orbach. Like, again, I'm like, you could be a cop, you could be a dancer, I don't care. See, you could be a mobster, you're just kind of always the same guy. But he's got that big booming deep voice, and his wife's just sort of, I think the first thing we get is like Lisa upset about some shoes she didn't bring, and she's like trying to calm her down and talk her off the ledge, and then Baby's having this inner monologue, which famously just goes away, by the way. Like, I thought we'd get like, voice of future Baby later in the movie. Nope, it's in that opening scene, something about John F. Kennedy hadn't died yet and she hadn't joined the Peace Corps or something, and then that was it. And so you have like 4 of the most different people in the same family in the same car together, and I don't know, I just thought that was a neat establishing scene.
Yeah, also, do you guys notice Newman from Seinfeld is in this?
Yes.
Like he's got that little bit part, and I forgot that, and when he was, what was he doing? Like he was a valet or something.
Well,
he's like an entertainment.
He was an entertainer, wasn't he? A magician or something at one point, and then he was leading the talent show, and he's all over in the film at weird times. Yeah.
Yeah, he's running around with the megaphone and telling people we've got, bridge lessons here.
And I know it's pre-Seinfeld, but it was just a fun little nugget.
I mean, this is like pre-Jurassic Park. This is pre anybody knowing who this dude was. Which, funny enough, when I saw Jurassic Park, my immediate thought was like, the dude from Dirty Dancing. I just remembered his routine. I mean, nice. I remembered that joke that he tells because it's so horribly bad. And so, but I mean, it's neat to establish this because this is a different time. Like, I don't have any relation to this kind of vacation where you go somewhere for 3 weeks. Right? Like, I don't know about y'all, but that was not like family vacation where I grew up.
No, me neither. But I do know some people who will do like the 2-week family vacation thing to a lake. And it's like they do it every single year. Everybody goes. And that's also not how I grew up. But, it's definitely a thing for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I have some family who do the same thing. I don't know that they go to any particular thing like this is, but they do go to a resort usually for a couple weeks, the whole family. There's 9 rooms or whatever, and they all just kind of hang around a place and do activities and whatever. So I know a few people like that.
And the writer Eleanor Bergstein tells that like this was sort of what her life was like growing up in the 1950s, and thinks that this is just the kind of things you did. And she said the reason people did this is because it was a time before air travel was really, you could get to it. It was accessible and affordable for people to do. So you took a drive and you went in the mountains for a couple of weeks, and then that was it. And I mean, I think they even have a line about like it's the first vacation the doctor's had in 6 years or whatever. And I'm looking at him going like, this dude's like close to retirement. Like, what are you talking about? So, because that is the funny thing about this is I know I don't even know what his real age was, but Jerry Orbach looks like 63. Pretty much like from 1987 to when he died. And so, I mean, he's sort of perpetually been in his 50s or 60s, I think. And for him to have like 2 teenage daughters is just kind of mind-blowing for me. I'm like, maybe he got married late, I don't know, but there's like a stark difference in the ages of the children and the parent.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I didn't really notice it either, to be honest with you.
It just maybe my suspension of disbelief was just like there, like I was fully invested, and I just never thought about the age difference.
No,
but now I'm doing the math in my head and thinking, interesting. Okay.
Well, I mean, like if you look at it, like the wife looks a lot younger than him, so maybe he married late. I don't know. I'm making up backstories that don't matter.
Maybe he aged quickly.
He's a doctor.
Doctor's a rough life. I don't know. It's also because in my head I know Patrick Swayze is 35 and Jennifer Grey is 22, and they don't ever call that out in this movie. And now he doesn't look 35, but he definitely does not look 22.
I did not realize he was that old.
Yeah, he was much older than her. So
wow.
I have always known that, again, because I knew him from other movies. So I knew how old he was, and he didn't play a teenager in this, so it's fine. It's not like they stuck him as a senior in high school or something, but you get a sense that like this guy's not that much older than her, but in reality he is. And there's some scenes like he looks like it. I mean, it's just part of it. Sure. I mean, I don't know, maybe I just know that, so I just start placing that on everybody.
Could be. We've already talked about the Kellermans. Let's talk a little bit about some of the entertainment staff. I think it's funny they come in all cocky and arrogant.
When he's laying out to the wait staff about like be good to everybody, and they're like hands off.
And yet they're the people who get criticized the most by the owner. Like they're the ones who risk their job the most. Yet here they come walking in like they're king shit, and you're just kind of like, well, obviously you're not king shit because your job is on the line every day. Like I don't get it. But yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic. We got Johnny, of course, and Penny, who used to date, but not anymore. And that story is
They used to date, but now they're just friends.
Yeah, before he started banging all the wives at the resort, I'm sure.
Yes, we got to talk about that when it comes around.
I do love, though, like Johnny and Penny's relationship is, I don't even know how to describe how much I enjoy their relationship. Like, you can tell that they're not romantic anymore, but they are so, so close. And like they both care so deeply for each other and just have each other's back. And they're just like the best of friends. And I just love that.
I get the vibe of brother-sister love there,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That he's like the older brother to her, and he takes the best care of her that he can. And, he has her back, she has his back, that type of thing. That's the vibe I got off of it.
Yeah.
Patrick Swayze and Cynthia Rhodes were such good dance partners, and they both talked about it in the year since. And Swayze even like lobbied the producers while they were making this movie, like, I should end up with Penny. We're so much like the characters are so much alike. Like, why would we not? Like, and so he didn't get his wish on that, but I could see it too. And I thought they had a very sweet, caring, deep relationship with each other. And that was all established in that first dance scene when they're together.
Yeah, that's the only thing that takes the brother-sister dynamic out right there.
No, not if you've seen Derek and Juliana Hough dance. So, I mean, no, really. But I watched them, you watch them dance, and just, again, I don't know how to dance, but knowing a lot of dancers, like, it takes so much trust to be able to do some of that kind of stuff, and you just have to know each other so well. I don't know, it's just really sweet. So I'm glad to hear you caught on to it too, Lindsay.
And just to piggyback off of that, I think Billy is Johnny's cousin. He's the one that lets Baby into that party the first time.
He's the guy with the watermelons.
Yeah, he's the guy with the watermelons. I think so there weren't a ton of scenes with Billy and Baby together, but when they were together, their chemistry on screen was so adorable. Because it was kind of like, it almost felt like, they just grew up together and they're besties. And I just loved watching the two of them, like just those little, maybe 3 scenes and a handful of lines. And for whatever reason, like those just really stuck out to me.
Oh yeah, they were cute together. And I mean, what I think is neat is he ends up dancing with her sister at the end of the show. Which is, I mean, honestly, I thought like Neil should really be with Lisa. Like they're perfect for each other because they're both kind of goofy. And,
right.
They try too darn hard. Well, they try too hard. So they'd be perfect together. You get the two tryhards together, but it's kind of neat that you get
the two tryhards.
Yeah. But we know Neil can't dance.
Kanicki and your friend together at the end of this.
But I don't think Lisa can either. So that would work really well.
That's true. They could do the awkward 7th grade dance, right? Together.
Yeah.
That would work.
Leave room for Jesus.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you, with her voice singing, there wasn't no Jesus in there.
Oh, my God. Oh, that was bad.
No offense to that actress. I know that she was just trying.
When she started to sing, my first reaction was, oh, I forgot how bad that was.
And, it's probably purposely bad. Hopefully,
well, yeah. I mean, Lucille Ball could sing really well, but Lucy and I Love Lucy was a terrible singer. So maybe she's an excellent singer. Sometimes it takes a great singer to play a bad one.
There you go. That's way true.
I could believe that, like that she probably could outsing everybody in the room. But I think it's funny, and I read this in a behind the scenes note, that the woman that plays Mrs. Houseman was supposed to play like the cougar girl, Vivian
Pressman.
But they ended up, because she was like working with Kenny Ortega, who's the dance choreographer in this, and everybody knows from like High School Musical and everything he does now. But he did all the dance choreography, but she was like his dance partner. And so her and the lady that played Vivian were both his dance partners. And so that's how they got in the movie. But so that little bit about it, I think she gets it from me as kind of an inside joke.
Vivian had huge tracts of land.
One way to
also
put it.
Had no regard for her wealth, throwing that fur on the ground like that. I'm like, come on,
hey,
man.
that's just the life she lives. She's gangsta,
privilege, right? Yeah. So I do think it's funny though that you talk about how they're introduced, Brian, and that is one of the best scenes, because Baby's just kind of walking around bored, and she sees Max giving all the waiters like, you got to be nice to all the daughters, even the dogs,
even the dogs.
Show them a good time. I went and hired you all from Harvard and Yale because you could smooth the world. And then here comes the entertainment staff, and he's like, now listen, you teach them this and that and nothing else, and you keep your hands off, And it's this whole like
the waiters
greasers
can go
and
ahead.
Socius thing.
Yeah.
Well, we got the whole greasers and Socius thing going on up here on Catskill Mountain. I mean, come on.
Well, the waiters have free reign. They can bone all the daughters they want, but the entertainment staff better keep their mitts off of them, right?
Yeah.
Setting up the dynamic of the rich people getting the waiter job and the slum people getting the entertainment job, because I guess that's how it works.
But I mean, that's one of the things that makes this movie last for all these years. I mean, we're talking about it, 33 years later, right? And I mean, one of the things that makes it last is not only that it's a sweet story and all this kind of stuff, but there's a lot of like social economic class stuff going on in this. It's not a dumb script. I mean, when she wrote this, it was smart. And I think that's what gives this movie staying power, is that you're watching the 60s generation of the people that started to break down that kind of stuff and really wanted to rebel against those barriers and things like that, especially when they were coming up as young people. And I mean, you go back and you study that cultural change in America, you see where it comes from. And it comes from reacting against this kind of thought and stuff. I mean, how can you typecast Robbie anymore? He pulls out a copy of frickin' The Fountainhead on somebody. I mean, that tells you all you need to know about this guy right
While
there.
Baby is helping him wait tables, like pour water.
I know, right? I mean,
and he gives her shit for it. What did he say to her? She like did something, and he was like, "A little more care, please."
Yeah, like a little more consistency.
Thanks
in the
for
water
doing
glasses.
my job, but also you suck at it.
Yeah, which if you've read The Fountainhead, sums up part of the characters in it. So. But really, I mean, like that tells. I mean, I love his whole bit about like, make sure I get that back. I've got notes in the margins. I'm like, you living your life by that book,
Right.
I mean, of all the things to pick,
I think the dynamic between the different staffs is kind of fun in this movie, and of course, you got I just get a kick out of the fact that Max Kellerman, the owner, will be all against everything that they do. And even Neil, to a point where he wants them to do, what was it, the pachanga or whatever dance at the end?
which I don't know what that is.
I don't either, but I just think that's hilarious. And then once they get the final dance going, he shows up and starts doing it, and everyone gets into it, and then all of a sudden, that's cool. No big deal.
Yeah, he's telling his band leader, like, can you get sheet music on this stuff? And I'm like, not for about 27 years, actually. But okay. Because this is 1963, and that's a synthesizer that hasn't been invented yet. So let me be
Jay.
music nerd and go, why? So
At least they kept the 45s going there, right? I mean,
and then they come back with a song like This Overload. And she's like the wind, which is definitely not something written in the 60s, but, whatever. I do think we have to talk about the music in this movie because it's almost its own character.
Oh, well, yeah. The music is what set this movie off, I would say. I mean, with the controversy, too, over the dancing. And then people went and saw it, really liked it. The music, without that music, though, I'm not sure this is as good a movie as we want to say it is. This soundtrack is one of the greatest soundtracks that has ever been put together. It's so good. And that even includes the fact that Patrick Swayze sings a song or two.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
So for me, when I first started, so it's been a while since I've watched this movie. So I watched it for the first time in years, a few days ago. But the opening scene and the dichotomy, I don't know if you guys remember this from whenever it was you watched it, but the dichotomy of just like these young kids, hipsters grinding on each other, and then the music in the background is the Ronettes' Be My Baby. And I was like, that's perfection. I can't sum this movie up in any other way, and it's right there in the opening.
Oh, I think, too, because, again, the social politics that this movie's talking about and has layered throughout it, that these people are having the underground dance, and what do they listen to? They're listening to soul music and R&B music.
Yeah.
But when they're out in the, with the public or with the people, right, they're listening to, mariachi bands and traditional things, right? But what they really like is, the stuff they listen to underground. And I think even Billy I caught the line this time, and Baby's like, where do you learn how to do that? And he's like, I don't know, back home in your parents' basement when they're not watching. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's how people, that's how all my friends learned how to dance and do anything else was when nobody was looking, and that was in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, I could totally believe it. That opening scene, it says everything you need to know because it's black and white. And like you see, you've got the Ronette song and you've got that woman with her skirt hiked up and her leg halfway up that guy's shoulder. And it's like, well, we know exactly what kind of movie we're going to be in now. And then they end with the same shot.
Yeah. Brings it all around, right? And that's a good way to do it. But
and I know I've banged on the fact that like they laced a lot of 80s music into the 60s period piece or whatever, but I'll tell you now, the two songs to me that just last beyond the test of time are the end song, I've Had the Time of My Life, which is just this soaring thing, and it's what it's supposed to be. But Hungry Eyes totally works. I mean, that's a sexy ass song. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's not set in a scene where they're actually having sex with each other. They're dancing and they're learning how to move together and all of that kind of stuff. But that Eric Carmen song is so perfect for that.
It's a great song. And I mean, just think about all the songs on here that really make this. That's one that was a huge hit. Obviously, I Had the Time of My Life was a huge hit. People know when they hear those songs what movie those come from. which I think is really cool because you can have great soundtracks and people will forget what movie they were on, right? Power of Love, you know, most people will say it's Back to the Future, but not everybody remembers it from that, right? So, but this one, you say, I've had the time of my life. Everybody knows it's from this movie. Everybody knows the scene that it's doing it. And even their commercials now where they're making fun are using that scene as part of the commercial. And so,
she came in a little hot.
Yes. So, I mean, just, it's great. It's, I mean, I love the soundtrack to this, and they even they have 2 soundtracks for this. I think they have this one, and More Dirty Dancing came out afterwards with more of the songs that were used in here, and it's fantastic. Let's talk about Robbie. Because
I think we did.
Well,
I mean,
we got to talk a little bit more about Robbie, right? I mean, Robbie is like the playboy,
a huge douchebag,
a big douchebag. He's the
Just
playboy
like
there,
the biggest.
He's getting laid with everyone. He's screwing everyone, right? Gets Penny pregnant, and his response when Baby confronts him is, "Some people count."
Yeah.
Ouch.
I mean, talk about like just a statement that tells you what the theme of this movie is about. Is a generation of people hearing that and going, "Screw that," and "Screw you for saying it." Mm-hmm. Not literally, though, because Robbie is banging everything.
Well, literally screwing him for saying. Anyway.
But I mean, really, though, like, he is almost a caricature, 2-dimensional bad guy. Like, all you needed to do was just flash him forward about 20 years, and he's like the drug dealer in the movie. Or, you know, he could have been like the...
Or the same character, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, flash forward 20 years.
Guy.
He could literally play this character 20 years after this movie was made. And it would still hold. I think so. Yeah, I mean, 2-dimensional maybe, but he plays it real well.
No, he does. I mean, like you're right. Like you could put this guy in Wall Street as one of Bud Fox's greasy friends and totally buy it, right? And it's really sad to say this. Like the actor Max Cantor died from an overdose because he was an investigative journalist and he did all this journalism work on heroin addicts and got hooked on heroin. Oof. And I mean, it's really kind of tragic and sad, but I don't know, it's weird to watch somebody give this, again, douchebag performance and then to learn, like, in their life they were actually also a huge douchebag. You know, and it's just, I'm not saying that like all addicts are, but like he became one because he thought he needed to do that to investigate it, which is the dumbest thing anybody's ever said and done. And so it's just, anyway, it's kind of ghoulish almost to watch this guy do this and realize like he's probably just playing himself. And I believe that because everybody else in the cast that talks about this movie said they were just kind of playing themselves. And so I'm like, well, okay, then he was just playing himself.
Ouch. Yeah, not a fun thing to say. But let's talk about one of my favorite parts of the movie, and that's the fight between Robbie and Johnny. Where Johnny just totally wallops the shit out of him. And then after beating him senseless says, "Go away, you're not worth it." Well, you got it. You did it. So obviously he was. You just didn't want to bloody him anymore. I don't know. But I love that scene. It's just hilarious. He's beating the shit out of him and then says, "You're not worth it. Get out of here." You're like,
you notice what triggers it. Like he's talking all this trash. The thing that gets it is when he says, "Don't worry, baby, I went slumming too." Yep. And it's like he just insulted her and Johnny at the same time, and that was like Johnny's like break point.
Oh, I thought it was. Didn't he say something like, "Looks like I went after the wrong sister"?
Well, that too.
Yeah, he said that one too.
Yeah.
He said that too, but then said, "Yeah, I went slumming as well," referring obviously to Penny. But yeah, what a yeah. And then the fact that he's trying to get on Lisa the whole time as well. And
yeah, I want to go back to that fight for a second though, because the thing I've always appreciated about that fight is it looked like a real fight between people. Like that, like, fights in movies are always like so fake and things. And I recently saw a movie called Ford versus Ferrari, and Matt Damon and Christian Bale have a fight in that.
That was so
good.
That
is very, like, they both talk about like, this is what real old men would fight like. It was like eventually you just get too tired and you stop, but it's really dirty and you're pulling clothes and stuff. And I love how like they're scrapping on the ground and slapping each other and throwing stuff at each other. And he finally just kicks him in the butt and stuff. I was like, that looked like a real fight. I give those guys credit for putting that together.
Well, and it wasn't like sound effect wise over the top either, which
right.
that
can ruin it.
Kind of refreshing.
Yeah, no,
I mean, after coming off of years of Marvel movies and stuff,
that's exactly what I was saying. I literally had those bam, pow things like floating around in my head as I was saying that.
someone cracking the
just
bell.
watch two guys. Really, to watch one guy whip the hell out of another guy that he's pissed at, it reminded me of high school. And not that I was doing it, but I saw a lot of people do that. So.
Yeah. All right. So let's see here. Let's talk about the dynamic of the father, right? Did they establish that he was a doctor beforehand? Because I don't remember if it was established or we learned about it when she went to get him.
Opening scene. Opening scene. When he introduces the family to Max. Max says, "Oh, your father saved me."
Got it. Okay.
Is he a cardiologist? Does it talk about what kind of doctor he is?
It didn't say. I don't know. I do remember like when Baby's helping Billy get the luggage out of the bag. Like she pulls the old classic black Quincy doctor's bag out. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know if he's a general practitioner or what. But yeah, they never really established. But you get the sense that he's pretty successful and he saved this man's life. And he plays it off like a lot of doctors do. Like it's no big deal. Like he just kind of downplays it. So you get the sense that he's this really intelligent and really good guy. But he's not full of himself, unlike a lot of the other people in this movie, which makes him really stand out because while he's not completely a perfect man, Jake Houseman is a good man. And we never see him do anything that we don't have some understanding of why he would react that way based on the information he's got. And we get to see him have a big arc too. I mean, he's the one that really goes like, hey, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big thing for somebody in his generation to admit, and to see that on screen was like a big deal.
Well, and there's a line too. I mean, obviously Baby and Lisa both adore him and are like, Lisa is a wannabe daddy's girl. She knows she's not the favorite. And Baby has clearly, has him wrapped around her little finger, kind of. But in the beginning, when she has that internal monologue going, she says that when she thought that she'd never find a man as good as her daddy or something like that. I don't remember the exact line. But, I mean, they clearly think the world of him, and he is clearly a good guy. But... yeah,
I think more evidence that he's a good guy is that after he's been brought in to work to help Penny and things like that, when they go and see her later and she says, "I'm doing a lot better. Your dad came by to check on me."
Yeah,
like he's on his vacation and he's like, I'll just go check on that girl again. Like, I mean, after he's done that whole like, you're not to see those people again, I don't want you anything to do with it. He still has like some ethics to him, which is
That's
you
a great
see
point.
that and you see that roll out in her too. That she also, that's where those come from. I mean, when they have that great confrontation on the pier, that's one of the best scenes. I mean, he doesn't say a word, and Jerry Orbach just acts his ass off through his face. Like, you can tell he's so hurt and he's so disappointed, but on the other hand, he's so damn proud because she's exactly what he wanted her to be. It's just killing him that he's having to see it like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's disappointed not only in the situation, but also disappointed in how he's reacted. To be honest, I think he has feelings of that. But I just think it's awesome. You mentioned it, Jay. The point is that he, as a doctor, he does what he's supposed to do, regardless of who the person he's treating is. And even though he thinks less of the group, he still goes and takes care of his patient. And I thought that was really cool to see in this movie, and that stood out to me for his character. And then, of course, as you said, he grows as a character, and in the end, after he obviously told Johnny that he felt that he knocked up Penny and then left her high and dry, right? And when he finds out the truth, I think it's really a cool arc. But I think had Mom not intervened, maybe he might not have gotten there on his own right away. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's great that Marge's one big scene is to go, "Sit down, Jake." And just puts her hand on his arm and he listens.
Yep.
Like he isn't fighter. It's still like
that's because
like,
Mom is the boss.
That's because Mama is serious.
And she
says
knows.
That voice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she knows. And I think it's a great contrast, too, to go back to Robbie. He's, an aspiring medical student and all this kind of stuff, right? And look at his ethics versus like a real doctor and a real man versus this guy that carries himself like this man, but he's really just a scumbag.
Correct.
You know, I mean, even compare Robbie to somebody like Neil. Neil's a good dude. I mean, he's a privileged dude, you know, douche sometimes and kind of a dork, but he's not a bad guy. You know, Robbie's just a jerk, and he's the personification of evil. Poor guy, got it all put on him in this movie. And then you got Jerry Orbach, who's like, see, I think he looks at him, he's like, oh, the son I never had, and then he learns like, oh, wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole, kid. You know, at the end of it, I love how he just like jerks that check back out of his hand at the end, like, excuse me, I'm going to put that back in my pocket.
Exactly. Yeah, so, I agree.
Scholarship revoked.
Yes. Here's some money for you to go to college. Oh, wait, what? Oh, you're the guy who got her knocked up and let her be? Oh, screw you.
Was that money that he was handing him? I thought it was like
so.
A reference letter.
I thought it was money.
I always took it as money.
Yeah.
I always took it as like, here's a little something to help you when you get back to school. And I always thought it was money.
Yeah.
Money would make more sense. I just assumed it was a reference letter.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was too. I don't know.
Maybe it was both.
Could have been.
Yeah, it could have been both.
It was a big enough envelope.
Pulling that back.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it was a huge envelope. So we need to talk about Penny too. We've kind of danced around her, pun intended, there for a bit. Well, we really need to talk about her as a character.
Well, I mean, for me, what I really liked about Penny is the struggle. Now, you mentioned earlier that Baby went to Dad for money for an abortion. I really don't think Baby knew that's what the money was going for.
Oh, I do.
I don't think
she knew she was pregnant.
You're right, but I don't think she knew that she was going to have an abortion. I think she was going to see a doctor to help.
So I think she did know that it was an abortion, and because when her dad asked, "It's not anything illegal, is it?" Baby hesitated and said, "No." So she knew that it was illegal, which it was at the time, because this is pre-Roe v. Wade when this movie took place. But so there was that slight hesitation is what makes me think that she did know exactly what the money was going to go for.
I think Billy lays it out to her too. He's like, I know this doctor. He's going to be in town for a day. I can get her an appointment. And I'm listening to him say this. I'm like, Billy, if you would just listen to yourself, you would realize this is a bad idea. Somebody who's rolling to town for a day, that is not the kind of thing.
You got to remember that at the time that was common.
I guess
that was all they had. It was backstreet type stuff. You didn't have legit doctors performing this kind of operation. So it's not like it is today. It was a much more dangerous thing, and you had to find someone willing to do that and take a risk. Yeah. You risked your own life and all that.
What I like about Penny is that, along with the chemistry she's got with Johnny and everything, is I love how when Baby finds her crying in the kitchen, which of all places to hide, by the way. But anyway, it's like plot convenience number 4, but okay. So we go with it. And when Johnny comes back and he hauls her out of there, I'm not going to let it happen to you and all this kind of stuff, which Patrick Swayze's accents go from like southern Tennessee to New York, which is hilarious in this movie. I mean, you notice that too?
Yes.
Thank you. I was the only one. So like they go all over the place. It's really funny. But because you can tell when he's trying to be like from the Bronx and whatever, or not or whatever. But anyway, so they're having this conversation. She's sitting on the the couch or whatever. She's got that drink in her hand and her makeup's just run down her face. And I love how when Baby's trying to console her and be so idealistic and stuff, and she just tells her like, you don't know shit about my problems. Why don't you go back to your playpen, baby? And just the way she says that is like, damn, that woman will cut you. You need to walk out of the room. Like, she has had enough. But I appreciate later that like she's hurt and she's scared to death or whatever, and then as she's pinning her up in the dress later for the performance or whatever, I love how she really talks to her about how like nobody would ever do anything like that for me, like nobody's ever. And I think she has some line early with Baby where she's complimenting her dancing, and she talks about how she was she's been out on her own since she was 16, so she's kind of a hustler in her own way, and that's how she's gotten where she is. And you can tell it's done a number on her. And I like that just that small character had that big arc in this movie.
Well, I think the thing is with her is that she trusts nobody unless she's given a reason to trust you, right? And
except Johnny.
Well, no, she trusts her people. All the people with her she trusts because they're her people. But an outsider's in here in Baby, and she's not going to trust her worth anything. And especially since she's comes from a rich daddy and gets anything she wants, right? So it's that dynamic. And then once Baby comes in and gives her the money for the procedure, she knows she can trust her now. And that's when everything fades from I hate your guts to, okay, we can be friends.
So I like the arc of Penny and Baby together, and how Penny has such a chip on her shoulder to begin with, which is understandable because you grow up, in kind of a rough arena. And then to have to work with people who have grown up with a silver spoon in their mouths is immensely frustrating. And so, of course, she would have a chip on her shoulder. But I think the other thing is that it's hard for her to imagine anyone from Baby's background ever being envious of her for any reason. And so when Baby comes up to her, too, and says, well, I'm envious, she's like, you're an idiot and a child, and you don't know what you're talking about. And so it's really, I liked watching her soften to Baby from being so rough around the edges with her in the very beginning. And it happened really fast. I mean, I know, she was given a reason to trust her, and that obviously helped speed things up. But sometimes things happen quickly. I don't think that even, I don't think that's out of the question. But I did like watching that softening.
Well, you got to remember, too, that Baby does a huge favor for her, not just with the money, but stepping in to learn the dance and perform it so that she doesn't lose her other job, right? So, yeah. I mean, that will melt barriers pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think it's neat that the same plot device used to kind of melt the ice with Penny also does with Johnny, because he kind of makes fun of her at first, like, yeah, it takes a real state to go ask Daddy, or whatever. Right. And then when Penny finds out that, that's what she did, she's like, that's really bold.
It was really brave, yeah.
Yeah, but Johnny talks about later on throughout the movie, what you did for us, nobody like you would ever do that for somebody like us. Again, that whole class system thing, nobody ever consort, you consort with us, but nobody ever really cares about us. And you genuinely did, and that takes a lot of guts. And the whole time, Baby's sitting there going, I am scared out of my mind as to what is about to happen to me, socially, emotionally, and everything else. And you're sitting here calling me brave. It makes the whole dynamic between them work. And that's why I think it's neat when Penny finds out Johnny and Baby have kind of gotten together, that she tells him, you've got to break this off. You can't do this. And it's not out of some jealous lover thing. It's from that sister thing, Bud, you can't do this. This is going to go bad. We've talked about this, and I don't know. I just thought those moments were really sweet.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, well, let's move on to the dancing in this movie. Obviously, that's a huge part of this movie, and we get it at the beginning of the movie. We're introduced to really the dance team. We see it all throughout here with Baby coming up and seeing the big dance party they're having, to learning how to really dance. I don't know if she ever danced before this, but she's taking it on and learning how to dance. And then the end sequence is a big, massive dance as well. So obviously, with the title, we know that dance is a huge part. So let's talk about those dance sequences that we have in here. Jay, do you want to start?
Well, I mean, I again, as somebody who can't dance at all, but always appreciates good, fun dancing in a movie and on a show and things like that, I thought it was neat to show the evolution of somebody learning how to do this, and that it's not about counting and all of that. That's part of it, yes, and they go through all that, but Johnny's this whole bit about the go, you got to hear the heart, which is so cheesy to watch him do that, but he's not wrong. It's you just have to kind of feel it. And as somebody who plays music, and I can't read music at all. I mean, I can kind of follow that going up and down the note bar, what that means, but I don't know what any of that is. I can't read any of that. I learned how to play by feel. And as somebody who was a bass player for a long time, I learned how to play that by playing with a drummer who liked to invent really fun rhythms to see if I could catch him. So it is learning about just kind of how to feel it. And I don't know, I thought that was so neat to watch Jennifer Grey have to do that live in front of us, because again, the story is she didn't know how to do any of it. And they figured she could learn it because, her background and her father is and all this kind of stuff. And Patrick Swayze apparently is an incredible dance teacher.
Absolutely.
He taught her how to do most of that stuff
in
along
a week.
Cynthia Rhodes.
I mean, it was days, and she went from 0 to 100 in days, which
makes you wonder what her parents thought she was doing this whole time.
Because she was doing it at least 8 hours a day. Had to.
I mean, maybe she told him she was taking dance lessons. I mean, that was part of the entertainment. Yeah. And let's be fair too. Like, she might have been working on it 8 hours a day. Johnny maybe had like an hour or two here and there to work with it, because he makes this point about like he's got to go and teach this class, and he's got to go and do. So between him and Penny, and I think that's why it's so neat to watch her. She's trying to do she's holding her frame and she's dancing across that little bridge, and she gets mad and kicks it, and has a little fit and all that, which I thought. I mean, I think that was a real moment too, and they just kept it in there. It was great, but I love watching that because he would only have so much time to show her. She was going to have to do this on her own. And I think that's the whole part of the subtext of this movie, is that you can ask for help from all of these people and you can get knowledge and information. But ultimately, if you're going to learn how to do anything and master it, you're going to have to learn how to do it yourself. And she really she halfway teaches herself how to do some of this stuff.
Oh, she absolutely does. I mean, that whole scene where she's on the pier, or the whatever you want to call it,
the little bridge,
where she's practicing all of her moves. She definitely had to take a lot of time to learn them herself, and that, I think, was what that scene was establishing. And it was pretty cool little storyline, and to take someone who I don't think it's possible for someone to learn all that in a matter of 2 or 3 days or whatever she had to do it. But it was kind of cool to watch them try and get it. And then, of course, when the performance actually comes, she will not do the lift.
Well, I think she just chickens out
absolutely
on it.
She does, because she's falling over most of the time in the water when practicing, so she doesn't want to do that and land on her face. So
I mean, which I can't imagine doing that anyway at all, or letting, I don't know. That whole move has always just mystified me as to how do you pull that off on any level? Like, it's
upper arm strength.
Well, balance and everything. Especially for the person being lifted, like to hold that dove pose or whatever she's got going. I'm like, you have to have incredible core strength to be able to pull that off. Like, and you got to really trust the person, holding you up. And Patrick Swayze's a buff dude, but he is not a big dude. It's not like Arnold Schwarzenegger was throwing her.
Yeah, but she's also probably like $105.
Maybe.
I mean,
true.
Yeah, like on a good day soaking wet. So, he could probably curl that 18 times.
Curl it.
I love how it's a specific 18 times. You could do that. I think the water sequence, they did that, was actually how they learned how to do it anyway. And they just kept it. They thought that would be good to put in the movie. And both of them talk about how it's really hard to act like you're having fun when you're freezing, because it was like 40 degrees or something. And I think Jennifer Grey's line was once, it was nipple exploding cold.
Oh God.
And this is what she called it. She's like, it was so cold. And she said, and Patrick's out there without a shirt, and I have no idea how he's not dead, from that. And they're both just, anyway, it's funny to watch, but
everything's retreated.
It's all just frozen. But it pays off in like the best moment, because they have that whole moment at the dance sequence when they can't do the lift, but everything else goes fine. Oh, you did good. And then at the end, of course, he gives her that look, and she's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do the move now, right?" And it's coming, I remember thinking to myself that watching the applause on the screen or whatever, that might have been the actual cast reaction to that. Like, oh, they finally got it.
Could be.
I love kind of the montage of scenes of just the feet. So like her Keds and whatever kind of shoes Patrick Swayze was wearing. And so I don't know if those were their actual feet. I hope that was, but I didn't. I didn't actually look into it. But I love how like their personas were just emitted through those feet in that moment, and I just thought that was neat. And also watching her trip over her own feet kind of reminded me of myself. So I was like, yeah, I get that. I've been there.
I think it's neat too, because I had seen that opening sequence of Footloose, if you've ever seen that, the 1983 one, is nothing but people's feet. And like, it's people of all walks of life. And you just see the feet doing things, and you just know things about people by those shoes. You know, and that's such a cool call out that you're exactly right. She's still this kid, and he is in these, you know, professional black dancing shoes, and she's just stepping on him with her tennis shoes and her little mini feet.
Yeah. Like,
now that you called that out, like her size and stuff, I'm like, man, her feet really were tiny. She must be a really tiny person.
Yeah, she's tiny. The end scene, so when everyone comes in and they're behind Johnny, and he's like, you know, he's stepped down and he's done his whole like shoulder shake, you know, crouch
Kevin
down
Bacon
thing. Yeah, Kevin Bacon
what
thing.
I call it.
And then the whole group, like all of his dancers come behind him like, yeah, we've been practicing for this flash mob scene. And, and like they are ready for it. And I was like, wow, this reminds me of Cry Baby. That was my first thought.
Good call.
I've got to think, though, to be honest, I got to think that he's going through a standard routine here. Like, so they probably did practice it at some point, and so they knew what was going on, and so they just joined in. But I think it is kind of.
Let me give you a different one on that. Let me give you a different read on it. Maybe that's what they did on their own time, and this is the first. I mean, like they have that whole conversation about like, oh, I think we should do this, and even Max is starting to react to this more modern music, which it's like 27 years in the future, but whatever. Enough of that. But I mean, really, like they're doing what they do behind closed doors now, out of doors. And what's funny is when they get like the old people involved. You're like, okay, now you come and do it with me. And everybody just automatically can do it. It's one of the funniest things about this movie is that magically, by the power of love and this awesome song, everybody can dance in this room. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Of course, Neil and Lisa can't dance, though.
No, but they're trying. And they're having a good time trying hard together, as I'm saying.
And really, isn't that the point?
Exactly.
Right.
Everyone should just try to dance. And Patrick Swayze will tell you suck and teach you.
They just need to feel it in their heart.
You just got to feel it, but it's on the two, Brian. It's not on the one.
Yes. All right. I think we've talked enough about Dirty Dancing here, guys. So it's that point where we're going to give our popcorn ratings and recommendations on this. So, Jay, why don't you start us off? What is your popcorn rating and recommendation for Dirty Dancing?
Oh man, this movie is just fun. It hits a sweet spot for me again because it's been a part of my life for 2/3 of it at this point, and I do think it's worth revisiting because even for all of its smolchiness and cheesiness, and we've called out a lot of that, there's a neat story underneath here, and there are real believable characters who have real emotions and do some very real things in it. So I think it's fun and definitely worth revisiting. I know they tried to do like a TV live action version of it a couple years ago. That was disastrous. You should avoid that at all costs. Sorry, but that was awful. And I haven't seen Havana Nights, so I'll take Lindsey's word on that one. But for this, just as it is, I think this movie still works. I think the music totally works. Again, I call out those two songs, Hungry Eyes and I've Had the Time of My Life, are great songs. I can imagine they're popular choices at many weddings these days. And so, and there's a reason for that. This one is one of those things that if everything in the 80s is now coming back and you're going to have some nostalgia for it, you should go back and look at this one if you haven't in a while, because I think for all of us here, it had been at least a decade since we watched it. And this is one that's definitely fun to go back and watch and at least just have a good time with. And if you want to have a little deeper time with it, it's there too. So I'm going to give it a large popcorn, and I think it's worth watching.
All right, Lindsey.
I've never given a popcorn rating before. So this is my first one, guys. No, this movie still, is still so relevant, especially considering how long ago, 33 years ago? Yeah. My math is right? Yeah. It's still so relevant and still so enjoyable. And I like going back and watching it after it being so long, Jay, to your point, there were so many little pieces that I'd completely forgotten about or just didn't notice the first time because I was 10 years younger than I am now and they just didn't resonate with me. So I would 100% recommend going back and rewatching it and experiencing it again if it's been a while and just taking it all in. So yeah, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with a large popcorn. And also, yeah, as you know, if you enjoy the Dirty Dancing, take a dive into Havana Nights and see what you think of that. Totally different plot line, but still a lot of fun dancing.
All right. Well, I'm going to join both of you on the large popcorn on this one.
What?
Like I said, it's been well over a decade. I'd say 15 years at least since I've watched this myself. But I really enjoyed the movie, and I really enjoyed watching it. And I echo all your sentiments. I think there's a lot of stuff here to watch. And even in today's day and age, you can relate to it. And especially now that we're older, I think we can relate to it a lot more than we could when we were in our teens and younger, right? So I think it's well relevant and well worth going and watching. So large popcorn for me as well. All right. Well, thank you for joining us as we take a look back at Dirty Dancing. You can find our archives in your podcast feed on Apple, Google, Spotify, or anywhere else. Find all the different places to find us on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. Please leave a positive review wherever you find the show. Follow the show on Twitter at FilmstripPod, or search Filmstrip Podcast on Facebook to connect with us there. We appreciate it if you would share the show, and we appreciate your support. For Lindsey and Jay, I'm Brian. Thank you for listening to Filmstrip.
Thank you for listening to Filmstrip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Filmstrip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.